In Myrtle Beach, you always go at your own pace. Lie out on the sand, lie out by the pool, go boogie boarding, go surfing, walk the boardwalk, walk the marsh walk, golf at one of 90 golf courses, mini golf at one of 50 mini golf courses, fish off a pier, fish from a chartered boat, go shopping, get drinks, eat the freshest seafood. The list is exhaustive, but the experience isn't. You can go all out or do nothing at all. How you relax is up to you. There is so much to do and explore, whether you're traveling with friends, family, or just yourself. With 60 miles of beach, you're going to find your place. If this sounds like what you need, then this is where you belong.
Twisted Tea and Myrtle Beach wholesaler Better Brands Incorporated. Know our consumers enjoy relaxing days on the water with Twisted Tea's original hard iced tea in hand. It's important to remember drink and boat responsibly. Choose to be or designate a sober skipper before leaving the dock. Do it for your family and your friends, your passengers, and everyone else on board. Twisted Tea salutes all sober skippers who take the pledge. Cheers, and we'll see you on the water.
Realtree has always had a connection to the fishing industry and the outdoor lifestyle. In 2016, Realtree expanded on the traditional business of creating the world's most effective camouflage patterns to create a fishing brand and family of patterns designed to connect the woods to the water and strengthen the bond between the two worlds. We couldn't be more excited to be working with the industry's top brands, retailers, and anglers to continue our growth, and we hope that you will join us. Enjoy Realtree fishing patterns inshore, offshore, on the lake, or at the dock. Learn more about the extensive line Realtree fishing patterns, apparel, gear, and more at Realtree.com. Trilogy Outdoors.
All right, folks, welcome to Trilogy Outdoors podcast, where we talk fence, fur, and feathers, and this week, politics. But first and foremost, we're going to talk a little bit outdoors, and I'll tell you, Senator, I didn't have quite as successful a trip as you did, but I did get to go chase a whitetail in Kentucky, and I tell you what, other than it being excruciatingly cold, I did have fun. I did get the opportunity. I got about a 3-second, where you would have pulled the trigger probably 3 times. I did get a 3-second opportunity at a big one, but had a great time, man. I tell you what, it's just great to get away from here and go hunt somewhere where the elevation changes and, to get back in the woods. And I sent you some pictures of where I was. It was different than sitting over a corn pile.
Yeah, so you were hunting an area where basically you've got a piece of really big private that's not yours.
Right.
And then a little strip of private that was yours.
That was ours.
And then another big strip of private that
was
yours.
not ours.
And so you're hunting a transition area where a buck is going to have to pass by you pretty quickly.
That's right. And I told you going into this morning, talked to the farmer who sat this morning, had 9 bucks, 1 big shooter.
Yeah.
And I think he said 10 or 11 does. It's an incredible area. What we're next to is a strip mine. In obviously in Kentucky, so many mines back in the day, they reclaimed this strip mine.
Yeah.
They go in and clean it up and sell it off in parcels. There had only been a couple homes built on this big parcel across from the property line. There's about a 5.5 to 6 foot fence separating the property where we hunt to that. Yeah. Which can create for a very tough, difficult decision when you have to watch that trophy 12-pointer on the other side of the fence, and you're hoping that he'll jump that fence and come over. Fortunately, part of that parcel across the fence, Danny Fulkerson, the farmer, had gotten permission from the landowner to shoot a deer up there, harvest it, and we were able to drive around but I was hunting the other side. I could not shoot over the fence.
All right.
The big deer that I did have jumped over the fence with the doe that I scared, and I did get to watch him for a little bit, which was even more torture. That combined with the rain and 36 degrees and not having a hoodie on and forgetting the battery to my electric jacket, which the key to an electric jacket is the battery. For anybody out there, they are incredible, but always remember to grab that battery.
It doesn't work without the battery.
It makes a big difference. But Kevin McPherson, my host, who invited me from Conway, harvested a really nice 8-pointer. It was field dressed at 205 pounds. Yeah. So, I guess 230, somewhere around there. Yeah. Big deer, but a great trip. And I am going back in January. From the 3rd through the 15th, they have a crossbow archery season. So I'm going to go back. I mean, at $328, I think I paid for licenses. Yeah. I'm going to go back and try.
Well,
I need one for the wall.
I'm sorry you didn't get one. My cousin, Seth Hayden, cousin by marriage, I guess, Seth Hayden, got back from Oklahoma yesterday and killed a 165-inch 10-point yesterday in Oklahoma. Or, well, I think he killed it the day before yesterday.
165-inch?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. That's a lease of his. And so I just found out about this lease, and I'm like, why haven't I been invited on this lease?
Because it's a cousin-in-law, right?
It's because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Well, I'll tell you.
165-inch deer.
Well, we have had an incredible month with Trilogy Outdoors Magazine and our writers, including you. You harvested your mule. You harvested your elk.
Yep.
We had John Hurst, who writes for the magazine, harvested his first mule deer. I sent you that picture, a good one.
Yep.
And then as of yesterday morning, Jackson Denny, who young writer, just came out of South Carolina, fished on the bass team, harvested what he's saying right now is rough estimate 155 to 160 inch with his bow in Illinois.
Well, good for him.
Yep. And it was a snow-covered morning.
Yeah.
But he's super proud of that. Now, I will say this, they have a very large lease in Illinois that his dad has gotten. They go up every year. They stay 2 weeks, and he has harvested some incredible deer up there through the years. So he's not new to it, but this is his biggest, he thinks. So incredible month. And this weekend snuck out and fished the Marshwalk Mafia Inshore Slam, which this year finally was a true inshore slam. When we won it the very first year, I won it, Team We Back to Blue. We had put out an invitation for anybody to nominate an Horry County police officer to fish on my team with me. And Officer Scott Sullivan of Horry County Beach Patrol was nominated by 3 different people. We had him on the boat. We ended up winning. We won because I had a 6-pound trout and I had a decent redfish. We did not have a flounder.
Dang, you had a 6-pound trout?
Yep. This year, the rules were that you had to have all 3 species to qualify to win. And if that didn't happen, then it was the largest weight.
Yeah.
So there were 2 teams that caught all 3, I think. 2 teams that caught all 3, and one of them had a 6.5-pound trout. Jeez. And they had a flounder, and they had a redfish.
All caught out of Merle's Inlet.
All caught in Merle's Inlet. We caught, I would say that we had somewhere 15 to 20 trout. We had 5 redfish. We had 2 black drum. We had 3 sheep's head. We caught a talk dog. And we caught 11 flounder, not a keeper. Biggest was 14.5 inches.
Okay.
But they were biting. They were aggressive. They were hitting big mullet. We had put a lot of time into it. But it's a great tournament. Thank you, Marshall's Marine, for putting that, helping Merle's Inlet Fishing Charters. Our good buddy, Flounder Pounder, Jason Burton, hosted that tournament. And congratulations to Team Lion King, the winners. I said going into it, there was an 80% chance that a charter captain would win the tournament. There should be every year. They're the ones that spend time on the water.
Sure.
And I think it turned out that first, second, third, and fourth were all charter captains. So,
yeah.
But it makes it that much sweeter when you win. It scares a couple people off that don't want to fish it. But I personally, my philosophy is any competition that I played in, golf, fishing, doesn't matter. I want to go against the best.
Yeah, it'll make you better.
When I win, I want to beat the best. So
it'll make you better.
But we do have one of the best, somebody who just did get a win recently in the studio with us.
Yeah. We're pleased to welcome Congressman Russell Fry.
Good to be here, guys.
Now, is it Congressman elect or Congressman yet?
Elect for now.
That's right.
January
okay,
3rd.
I did a little bit of reading. I was just making sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's been elected, so we're going to call him Congressman.
I agree. He deserves it.
You get sworn in January 3rd, you said?
Yep.
All right, you get sworn in January 3rd.
Now, does that happen in Washington?
Yeah, in Washington, you got the whole Bible. My son gets to come on the floor of the House of Representatives, and you get sworn in, and then you're it. I mean, everything starts on January 3rd.
Drinking from a fire hose.
Oh gosh, it's been like that.
Yeah, that's the amount of, I don't know, proudness, is that a word?
Sounds good.
If proudness is not a word, then forgive me.
How about pride?
There you go. Amount of pride. Thank you, English. The Horry County vocabulary wasn't coming out there, or was coming out there.
No.
The amount of pride that I have knowing my friend Russell Fry is going to represent me in Congress is tremendous.
Thank you.
He and I
Ditto. I'm right there with you.
He and I have known each other a long time, and Russell, you worked for the party for a little bit, right?
Yep.
And then you were elected to the State House of Representatives here in South Carolina. What was your district?
106.
106 which was right next to mine. 108. 106 was like the southern part of Horry County.
That's right. Surfside and Garden City.
Served there from 15 to 22, right?
That's right.
Served there from 15 to 22. Inglis has got his facts. Good for you.
And Goldfinch was there with me for a year.
Yeah.
Right.
And then he moved to the upper chamber.
Then he graduated. Yeah, he graduated over to the
That's debatable.
over to the quiet place.
Yeah, some people would debate that for sure. Yeah, and so anyway, those of us that know Russell, have known Russell, we're really proud of him and proud of what you've accomplished and your movement up to Congress. And quite frankly, I mean, one of the things that I was concerned about early on in the race was that there would be somebody serving me in Congress that I didn't know and I didn't trust. You know, and honestly, and you know, I thought about running at one time because of that.
Exactly.
Right.
And I mean, that's not a secret. I chose not to do it, but when I found out that you were pulling ahead, it made me so much more comfortable, knowing that somebody I knew and that I could trust and that I was comfortable with would be in Congress representing me and my family and my neighbors. So, thank you for that.
No.
Thank you for winning, and look forward to working with you in a different capacity.
Likewise, and I'll tell you, I think I have the same motivation. I looked at, some of the candidates that had emerged early, and I thought to myself, there were two things that were in my mind. One was the obvious, the vote that Congressman Rice had taken, but two was a gut feeling that I had that I knew that the electorate was not going to be with him in the end, and it didn't matter who was in the race. So.
Yep.
Who was going to represent our area, who was going to put our area first, who had the stamina, the capacity, the bandwidth to really drive consensus, to really build a team, to make things work. And in the end, I said, you know what? I mean, I really have enjoyed my service in the State House. I mean, I was in a good spot. I was the chief whip for the House Republicans, which is a nice title for herding cats. But but really I said, you know what, we're going to do this and leave it all out there, and we did. So, but I am looking forward to it too. I mean, there's so many, this, Stephen. There's so many things that federal and state touch, and even local too. And can you be the glue that holds things together or puts things in place? I mean, we're all in this region rowing in the same direction, and sometimes you look around and you wonder if people have that same mindset, but I know we do.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's because we've worked together on a lot of different projects and capacities over the years, and so we know what to expect. All right, so with that said, I would like to sort of understand sort of what, and I know you've been campaigning a while, so you probably have a good campaign stump speech. But
I was going to say one thing. I was going to say one thing. I don't think I ever doubted the fact that you were going to win. Going back, when like I said earlier, you had so many people that were out there, campaigning for you that weren't on your campaign committee that were doing it for you. And then the fact that when your signs popped up, good Lord. I mean, it was like everybody. Dude, I live in a neighborhood with Bradley Parker, who I'm sure you know. Mm-hmm. And Bradley would send out a message in the whole neighborhood thing, like, all right, who wants one? And I messaged back. I said, and I actually messaged you on Facebook or somebody. I said, hey, I'm at 235 Grove Park. Somebody, come put a sign in my yard. But we had the whole front of the neighborhood covered. So, but I didn't doubt for a minute. I knew. And then as soon as you won back in June, I said, oh, this is a done deal. Well, and the numbers speak for themselves. I think it was 64 point. What was the final? It was like
close to 65, which was the high water mark for the district. I mean, it was weird because we were talking about a red wave just nationwide. You had one in Florida, right? You had one here in South Carolina.
Yeah.
So it was the high water mark for the district. But I mean, in the State House, we got 7 additional Republicans
in districts that had a BVAP of like 45 and higher. Okay, so BVAP's Black Voting Age Population,
right?
Which you can just about put in the Democrat column every single time, right? And in districts where there's a BVAP of 45 and higher, we picked up 5 Republican candidates.
Yep.
That's just, it's incredible. That either means one of two things to me in my very small mind. It either means they didn't turn out to vote, the Democrats and the black voting age population in that district didn't turn out to vote, or the black voting age population, some portion of that decided to vote for a Republican.
Yep.
Right? So they either weren't motivated because of whatever reason, or they were motivated by Republicans. Both of those are okay to me.
Yep.
Right? Depends on which side of the aisle you are, but both of those are okay to me.
Right.
So exciting time in South Carolina, but it didn't happen everywhere.
No.
And I want to ask you about that, but not right now.
Okay.
Okay, I want to get to that, but not right now. I want to know sort of without getting into a stump speech, because I've given stump speeches, okay? And at the end, after I've given the stump speech about the 5th time, I start feeling like sick of it, right? I want to say something different. I want to talk about something different. So do you want to talk about something different?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. Well, I want to know what you really think you can get done, what's important to you. I'm not talking about like, let's do away with Iran and North Korea. I don't foreign affairs stuff. If you really want to, but what can you get done for South Carolina? What do you want to see get done for South Carolina? What do you want to see get done just for the district? What's the vision for the next, let's say, 10 years?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's a twofold question. One of them is national, one of them is local, right? So on the national level, we have divided government. We have a Democrat in the White House. We have a Democrat Senate. And Republicans, finally, they called it last week, will control the House of Representatives. And so I think with that, from a national perspective, is a level of oversight. I mean, you look at everything, and this gets into a stump speech a little bit, but it's true. You look at the prices of everything and how impactful those escalations are on the average working class, and it's just catastrophic.
I drive a diesel.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. It's $5.15 a gallon.
Right. And you might run out of it. I mean, they're down to its lowest level. So
right.
I think a level of oversight on this administration is important, not only because of the partisan lens in which you approach it, but really because of the struggles that are going on in just the working class. I mean, what we have right now is not working. And so I think that's what a Republican House of Representatives is definitely going to bring. And you've already seen signals of that coming. I mean, you've seen things from anywhere from the Hunter Biden laptop story to the border and the fentanyl that's coming across the southern border. So on that front, I think Republicans, including myself, are going to have a level of oversight that you haven't seen, because they haven't done that for 2 years. From a local level, look, I think local politics matters. Now, a congressman out of 435 who has zero seniority, and even if they had seniority, going and getting the federal coffers to open up and just pour money to the district, I think is unrealistic. And I don't think that happens anymore. I mean, I think that there are things that you can do for grants, that you can be a resource for local governments, for state governments. There are partnerships that I want to further in the legislature with leadership. I mean, what does South Carolina, what are its priorities, from the Port of Charleston to I-73 to whatever the case is? I mean, we have a lot of people who are moving here. Our infrastructure, just like everywhere else, is behind.
Yep.
And so I think that's incumbent on a congressman to go do. Getting a crazy amount of money in an earmark, I think, is unrealistic for anybody at this point. I mean, you look at our obligations and what we have to fund every year, and that's strong. I mean, 70% of the federal budget is for things that you can't touch. It's Medicare, Social Security, things like that. I mean, and of course the debt on the interest, but just having that local government, that state government experience, I think just helps pull people together from a grant perspective. Again, we're all rowing in the same direction, but you look at our region, and there's so many bright spots that we can tap into, from I-95 to I-20 to the Dillon Inland Port. I mean, there's so many things that you can do, but getting people to row in the same direction is important. And from an economic development perspective, from an infrastructure perspective, that's got to be key.
All right, so let me intervene right here for just a second before we get too far down any one particular road. So Kevin McCarthy is going to be the House Majority Leader, right?
Speaker.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
Kevin McCarthy is going to be the Speaker of the House. By how many votes are you in the majority now?
I think that they're still waiting on a couple races,
Yeah.
but it looks like it's going to be 221 to 113 or something like that.
Last count's 221.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's probably enough of a margin there where you're not constantly going to have to be giving stuff away to the Democrats in order to. I mean, it's not a big margin, but I think it feels like that's enough of a margin where you're not going to constantly be having to deal with Democrats.
No, and I think that's the mission, at least in talking to Kevin McCarthy, to Steve Scalise, is, when it comes to things that happen on the floor, never cede control on the floor to the Democrats, and so that's at least the objective. But
well, my concern was if the Republicans were going to take the House by 2 votes,
right.
Then you got to start dealing with Democrats, right? Because one doesn't show up, one has a different perspective, one takes a job as a lobbyist, whatever.
Right.
Things happen, right? I mean, things happen quickly if you only have a 2 or a 3 lead majority. But it doesn't sound like that's the case. So it sounds like you can sort of take control of things.
Mm-hmm.
All right, second point. So something that's near and dear to the heart of this district always has been infrastructure, specifically I-73.
Right.
Okay, I-73, for those listening don't know what that is, that's an interstate, a planned interstate to connect. The easiest way to tell you would be to connect Myrtle Beach or North Myrtle Beach to I-95. Okay, and there's some existing roads that we've used through there to sort of make that connection. The point of that interstate was, in my opinion, that lots of people have different opinions on what the purpose of. There's a purpose of evacuation during hurricanes. Got a serious problem with evacuations here. The second purpose, economic diversity.
Correct.
Which I want to talk about, okay? One of my biggest pet peeves with Horry Georgetown County is our lack of economic diversity. We are solely focused on something that's good, but we're solely focused by force on tourism.
Yep.
Right. And one of the things that really lit a light bulb in my head was Hurricanes Matthew and Florence, when the barriers started going up on Highway 501 over Lake Busby.
Right.
And then the barriers started going up on the north side of Georgetown, which would have blocked the Waccamaw River Bridge. I mean, 2 things went off in my head. Number one, the Waccamaw Neck's got no way out now. Right? I mean, we're literally stuck on an island when that happens. Number 2, if our economy here shuts down for 3 weeks because there's no way in or out, I mean, that's a dead year for us, right? I mean, we're losing hundreds of millions of dollars in that month period of time that the economy shut down because there's no other businesses. I mean, there's some service businesses to support the tourism industry.
Right.
But there's just no other businesses. And so I-73 was always the hope, this will give us a corridor, this will give, a manufacturing corridor, an industry corridor, but it just hadn't happened yet, has it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, we went to battle over this for the last few years, and so far we've lost this battle. We can't come up with $300 or $400 million to get the I-73 project off the ground and started. We had permitting, we had everything in place, but we just couldn't come up with the money. And so I'm starting to shift, Russell, and I may be putting you on the spot a little bit, so feel free to divert if you want to, but I'm starting to shift my focus. I'd love to see I-73 done, but if it's an impossibility, I'd like to see the southern end take advantage of a road that has been on the books for years that could provide us with some of the same economic diversity, the Southern Evacuation Lifeline. That's a bridge over the river that would connect the south end of Horry County, north end of Georgetown County, to the western side of Horry County. Serves the same sort of purpose as an evacuation route, serves the same sort of purpose as an economic development route, economic development, economic revitalization of the western side of the Horry County. Lot less money to get there. I mean, best cost estimates are around $100 million rather than $400 million in state money. What do we need to do to get there? Are you supportive of such a project like that? How are we going to do
I love the project, and I think it's, in my mind, Stephen, it's in addition to and not in lieu of. I think the permitting, if I remember correctly, is not there yet for SEL, the Southern Evacuation Lifeline. But I agree with you. I mean, if you can get it permitted and built, I mean, for the Bucksport area, it provides economic development opportunities that they've never seen. I think it is an additional route, as you know, just living on the south end. I mean, we have to travel south through Georgetown in order to get out, and then you couple that with the water level rises or whatever the case is, and you're in a pickle. I mean, just getting out safely, getting out in a timely manner. I mean, we always talk about this, but think about a hurricane coming in mid-August when people are packed here in the beach. It's headed our direction, and not only do we have to evacuate 500,000 people between the two counties, but then you've got about 1 million people that week in and along the Grand Strand. I mean, it becomes a very strategic challenge for anybody, and getting people out of harm's way quickly. We saw what happened in Florida recently. They were having problems just getting out and going anywhere because of the trajectory of the storm, where it was going to hit. I'm all for sell. Have been for a while. I know there was money in the Horry County ride for environmental impact studies, and then maybe some right-of-way acquisition too.
Yeah.
I think that one is a longer fight, and I'll tell you why. One, it's not permitted, and we know with the environmentalists what they will do in the end to challenge that road. And two, the money's not there either.
But you hit on the first one, the permitting. You as a congressman can be helpful with permitting, though.
Correct.
Right? All right. So I assume you've looked into that and studied that a little bit. One of our biggest issues with permitting on the coast, for those of you listening that don't know, is we always end up in these environmental fights because there's always a sensitive area of some kind of wetland of some kind. When you're building a road on the coast, there's always a legal fight, and it's always over an environmental issue, which relates back to the environmental impact study. A congressman that is lobbying for, maybe that's the dirty word nowadays, a congressman that is advocating for a permit to get done can be very helpful in these situations. So anyway, I think you've made your point. You're supportive of it, and you want to see it get done.
Yeah.
I mean, what if we can get $100 million commitment from the state sometime in the next 2 or 3 years to do that? So then we're only missing the permitting part.
Correct.
Right? So just keep that in the back of your mind. That's the pitch from Goldfinch to Fry today is, we may or may not get I-73 done. I'd love to see it get done, but let's not say 73 has to come first and Sell has to come next, because we may get in a situation where Sell actually comes first and I-73 comes next.
Yeah, look, and I think with 73, I mean, I think we're permitted, we're ready to go. And look, and this, and everybody that pays attention, there has to be a combination of federal, state, local funds.
Yep.
I mean, that's just the days of a magic pot of money raining from the federal treasury from D.C. are just over. They don't work that way. You look at 526 in Charleston, half of that money is locally derived.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just everyone's got to have some skin in the game. And look, if we care about it, we care about it from a economic development perspective. I mean, think about this. A company, and this, but this is for your audience. A company looks at a region and says, is there going to be a port? Is there going to be rail? Or is there going to be an interstate within 8 miles of this plot of land that we want to build a facility on? And if you don't have that, I'm not saying that they're not going to come to you. It diminishes your opportunity, because they look at it from how quickly can I get my widgets to the market.
Yeah, another way I heard that stated by a company one time was, can I get my trucks, my semi-trucks, 18-wheel big wheels, big rigs, can I get my trucks to 60 miles an hour in 6 minutes? That was the measuring stick by which they used. And I tried to think about a place where you could do that in Horry or Georgetown County, and there's not many places that you can do that.
Nope.
Unless you're breaking the law.
Unless you're
without breaking the law. Unless you're near 31.
I mean, 501.
You better have them going 80.
501, which is our biggest road in and out of Horry County, is 55, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's not a lot of options there to get you to 60 and 6. So anyway, well, thank you for your answer on infrastructure. Obviously, infrastructure is super important to Horry, Georgetown County, and your district at large. But what I'd like to know now, we are sort of an outdoor wildlife hunting and fishing centric company. Trilogy Outdoors is, and this district, which I say this district, your district.
Mm-hmm.
your new congressional district is heavily, heavily influenced by outdoor activity, right? I mean, we've got an ecotourism paradise on the coast. I honestly think Georgetown is going to morph into an ecotourism paradise when the steel mill goes away, which I believe it's going to. That waterfront down there is just going to be ripe for ecotourism.
Right.
Myrtle Beach Chamber of Commerce is now, right on here on this is advertising ecotourism. I mean, they're moving away from this golf theme and moving into the ecotourism space. I mean, golf is slowly but surely dying, dwindling one round at a time. And so they've got to fill that space with something else. And guess what? We have all the resources here to do that.
Correct.
So, I mean, obviously I know what you did in the State House to try to perpetuate that and to further that. I mean, I assume you feel like this is important to your congressional district, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So what do you think should be done? What are we going to do to further perpetuate that in Congress?
Look, we are blessed with riches in the sense in this area and really the state that we have, such a plentiful outdoors opportunities. That's fishing, that's hunting. I mean, that's really everything. Camping, just being out there. And in this region, there's a lot of opportunities for that too. And so, in the state, perpetuating or furthering that tourism nexus, bringing people in who want a little bit of a different experience, I think is big. And at least on the federal level, look, there are regs that some bureaucrat in Washington will propose that make zero sense. One was about the boat speed recently.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, because I was going to bring that up.
Yep.
And before we move on, I don't mean to interrupt you, but let's talk about that for just a second, okay? Because Inglis and I, Captain E and I, have talked about this quite a bit. It's really important to our listeners. So I want to hear you address that for just a second. So what Congressman Fry is addressing is a regulation to prevent boats off of the coasts. It's really the entire Atlantic coast.
Right.
So it affects more than just us, but off the Atlantic coast to give boats a speed limit of 10 miles an hour, anywhere from 0 to 20. It's 20 now, right? Inglis was the last proposal.
Yep.
Anywhere from 0 to 20 miles offshore, a speed limit of 10 miles an hour. So and it's from from like September to April or something.
April.
Whatever, it doesn't matter. It's a giant pain, okay? And it is going to, if you combine that, the speed limit, which will take you, if you do your math right, it's going to take you 2 hours at minimum to get out to 20 miles. If you combine that with the federal regulations on red snapper, if you combine that with the proposals for catch shares, if you combine that with, I could go on and on. You combine that with all the federal regulations and the fact that you now have to have a lawyer with you to interpret what fish you can catch.
That's right.
When you're on a boat. It's just like it's like dying 1,000 cuts, one after another after another. It is a picking away of the fisherman's ability to fish off of the coast of South Carolina, which, was an $8 billion, just fishing alone, $8 billion industry for South Carolina. And they're killing it one cut at a time.
Yep.
And it's almost like it's on purpose. It's almost like the Department of the Interior, who is a politically appointed person by the President of the United States, who just seems like he's becoming more and more progressive, more and more liberal with time. It seems to me like it is designed to get us out of the business of hunting and fishing.
Of hunting and fishing.
Yeah.
And you brought up a great point. You sent me a text a couple of weeks ago. It was funny as heck. So there are more UFO sightings every day than there are of a whale. But yet planes are still able to fly.
No. So I did the math on this. Yeah, it's in South Carolina. In South Carolina, as of last month, there was 47 UFO sightings so far. Okay, and not one suggestion by the FAA that we stop commercial plane flights. Okay, not one suggestion that we stop commercial or private plane flights. However, there's been 3 whale sightings.
Yep,
3 whale sightings, and we're going to stop. Essentially, we're going to stop all boating traffic.
I've seen 2. I've had 2 whale sightings in all my years on the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. And they were both in the winter months, and one I got really closer than I wanted to, and I will never get that close again because they are big. But that's it. And then I talked to all these other captains. Jay Bass, you talked somebody who's done charters so long and done so many and never seen one.
Yeah, I've seen 2 in my entire life.
And you're on the water a lot.
In my entire life, I've seen 2. So, I mean, it's like I made this analogy the other day, English. I said it's like, and it goes back to the UFO thing. It's like we should ban guns because somebody might kill an alien at some point in time.
Yep.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's that ludicrous to talk about essentially banning our ability to get offshore because somebody might hit a whale that very few people have ever seen. Very few people, more people have seen UFOs than that whale.
No, look, and this is the classic. This is classic government, right? And this is what frustrates you and me when you look at this: is that somebody in a cubicle somewhere said we got to save the whales, and so without even exploring how the fishing industry feels about this or whatever the case is, they just put this out there. But that's how it's just slow erosion of rights, of ability to move, of commerce. I mean, you talk about affecting livelihoods. That will absolutely.
Sure.
Look, if it was a 10-mile-an-hour boat speed, you're never going to get to the Gulf Stream.
You're never going to go. You probably won't even go, right?
No, we'll quit going.
That's the point. We won't go. I mean, nobody's going to go if it's going to take you 6 hours to get to the Gulf Stream. Nobody's going to go anymore. And, I'm not by nature, maybe by nature I am, but I think over time I have mellowed and I've gotten away from conspiratorial stuff. Okay, I think you're right. I think it's probably more of a single person that has way too much authority, a faceless bureaucrat, unelected by the public, that has way too much ability and authority to just put his or her thumb on top of a group of people he or her do not understand. Right? I mean, that person that made that choice that says there's going to be a speed limit offshore, that person, I guarantee you, has never spent time offshore fishing.
No.
I guarantee you that person doesn't live off the coast of South Carolina. I guarantee you that person doesn't own a boat. I guarantee you that person doesn't own a fishing rod.
Yep.
And yet they're going to make that choice for us, and they're going to put us out of the business. And that is precisely, as you said, what federal regulators will do if people like you, Congressman Fry, don't put their thumb right back down on top of them and say, no, sir, not for my district.
Yeah. No, look, and not only just this, but I talk to people in industries, Nucor or whomever, and I'll tell you, they say the biggest challenge that they face is somebody who's never worked in an industry, who is now making rules for the industry. And I just have a problem with that. I mean, look, I'm a lawyer, you're a lawyer. We don't know what we don't know. And for some unelected person who gets a job right out of college with no on-the-ground training in that industry, these are the people now making regulations for the rest of us to live under. And it's just, this is what drives the American people crazy.
Crazy.
Yeah, it truly drives me nuts. Okay, so we were going down a path, and then I got you way sidetracked with speed limit offshore. You were essentially saying how the wildlife conservation, outdoor ecotourism space is incredibly important to your district, and then we got sidetracked. So please carry on from there, and I'll sidetrack you again as we.
No, look, I mean,
we're good at that.
Look, I think it's people look for something now, right? And when they plan a trip, they look for something a little bit different. I'm sure they still enjoy the beach and they still do the touristy stuff, but people want a little bit of a different flair whenever they go somewhere, whatever they're doing. And so the same thing goes here. I mean, we have a natural, just a natural or great spot for natural beauty, for partaking in our rich natural heritage, and so we need to foster that and continue to promote that, because look, I mean, I grew up around here. It's great.
You grew up in Surfside, right?
Yeah, Surfside and Sockasty. So I always say I can surf and knife fight. That's my pitch.
Hang on, I can almost recite it. Grab your boots by the straps.
That's right.
Yeah.
But like I think it's a great thing, and I'm glad to see that people like the Myrtle Beach Chamber and others are promoting it, because when people are looking around for something to do and places to go, they want something a little bit different, and you can have a lot of fun down here doing and participate in that stuff.
So I know you're new to the job, and I'm putting you on the spot here, and I apologize. So are you familiar yet with the Pittman-Robertson Act?
Mm-mm.
Do you know that one yet? Okay. Pittman-Robertson is it's the driver, the horsepower behind conservation for America, and it's an obscure law, but I think it's something that every congressman should know. And so I'm going to give you a little education on this if I can. Essentially, what it does is excise taxes that we all pay when you buy stuff that has to do. If you buy a fishing rod, you buy a fishing reel, you buy a scope, you buy ammo, you buy whatever, anything to do with hunting or fishing. It's an excise tax that then goes back to the respective state wildlife agencies, and pays for their conservation efforts. So hunters and fishermen, as you've always heard, pay for the conservation, right? I mean, it's not the bird watcher. It's not, it's not the guy that walks through the woods with his bells on to scare the deer and the elk, as I ran into, and I can tell you that story at some point. It's literally the guy that has his fishing rod or has his gun that is hunting or actively hunting or fishing, that pays for the conservation of that species. So every time Pittman-Robertson comes up for renewal, every time it comes up for a vote or an amendment or anything, our congressional delegation, I'm going to charge you, if I can, I'm going to charge you with, please make sure our congressional delegation is paying strong attention to that. It's super important to this district, super important to conservation efforts. And so anyway, I'm going to...
Don't worry, I'm keeping notes with everything that he's charging you with.
I'm going to...
Don't worry, I got it all right here. I'll send it to you in email.
Yeah. There's no reason for you to know about it now. I know about it because I'm a nerd with this stuff, but I'm going to assign you the homework of looking up the Pittman-Robertson Act and making sure that stays in law and that it doesn't get diluted. There are a lot of people that would say, well, honestly, I mean, maybe we should figure out a way for the people that don't use the resource to pay for it. And I'm not, at one point in time, I was a fan of that. And today, I'm not a fan of that. And I'll tell you why. Because I want to be able to look at the environmentalist or the PETA person. I want to be able to look at them and say, I literally pay for it and you don't. Okay? I have a vested interest in protecting it. I have a vested interest in making sure my kids and my grandkids have the same abilities that I do. And so I'm a huge fan of Pittman-Robertson. So just when you get to Congress and you've got all the million different things being thrown at you, as I know that you will, watch out for Pittman-Robertson.
Well, and I hadn't heard of the name before, but familiar with the concept.
Yeah, and there are some other concepts like that too out there. And actually, our gas tax in South Carolina has a little portion of it that's dedicated to landings, as you know, because you helped with that. That's dedicated to landings and preserving landings and making sure they're taken care of. And so any little thing like that can further outdoor activities, ecotourism, hunting and fishing, we have to protect, because I mean that's the foundation of it, right?
Yeah,
that's how we use those resources. So we got to be vigilant.
So in my trip recently to Kentucky, I did, and I've been trying to check and make sure I'm right, but I think I am. There are no state hunting grounds up there for like you to come into state or you to be a local resident. There's nowhere for you to go hunting.
You mean public lands?
Public, yeah.
Like a WMA.
Public lands.
BLM, yeah. Well, on the East Coast, and I guess I can call Kentucky East Coast, right?
I would think so.
Yeah, I mean, on the East Coast, it's not as popular of a thing as it is out west. And there are some states out west that are like 98% of the lands. I mean, you can look it up, but Colorado's got to be at 95%, has got to be BLM lands. And it's never been a tradition on the East Coast. And I've heard various reasons for why that's the case. but there's truly a different mindset. When I started hunting out west, Inglis, I felt almost as if I was trespassing.
I was going to say cheating. Yep.
Cheating or something to be on BLM. And then there's also this sort of like, I don't want to share this with anybody mentality. They don't have that. It's a totally different, like, they run into each other in BLM and they'll sit down and talk, have a beer together, share information. Where'd you see this buck? Where'd you see that bull elk? And they share information, and I'm just like, I would never. I mean, this is not a thing for us on the East Coast. I keep all the information to myself.
Yep.
Right? I'm not telling
yeah.
you where I saw that big bull. But, I mean, they grew up totally different mindset than us. And so I don't know how we got off on that topic, honestly.
I was just talking about how, South Carolina, at least we have WMAs, we have federal areas like Waccamaw Wildlife Refuge. We have all kinds of options for.
Oh, we do have some WMAs, yeah. We do have some WMAs. We don't have nearly as many upland WMAs, though. I mean, on the coast, we've got some great
ones.
Right. Title WMAs.
Right.
Right. And, I mean, we've got what used to be, I always call it the Gun Club. It shows my age, but the Gun Club, which is Santee Coastal Reserve,
right,
is 50,000 acres of some of the most pristine, prime, jewel of the crown duck hunting on the East Coast, and it's taken care of by you know who.
Yep,
duck stamps. I mean the guys that use it pay for it. Not the bird watcher. Not the bird watcher. It's the guys that use it. The guys that actually shoot.
So I know we're getting way off subject here, but so I had friends that were drawn last year for draw hunts. They hunted the Santee Delta, and they also were hunted the Cape, if I'm right, the one across from it.
The Cape, yeah.
And they said that absolutely looked like nobody had done anything.
So there have been I've been busting. There's no other way to put it other than busting the balls of DNR over management of some of this for years. And Russell, Congressman Fry, has been dedicated to trying to help with some of this too. But there's a growing sentiment that the previous generation of property managers was a little more vested. Had a little more
vested interest in it.
Yeah,
they cared.
Vested interest is the right way to put that. The newer generation of property managers for DNR seem to be intellectual, academic, biologist type folks. Many of them, I don't know why, but many of them graduated from App State. Okay, so no, I'm not casting aspersions on App State. It's just like, you sort of got a picture in your mind.
Right.
In your mind.
I am. I'm thinking about Luke Combs right now, but keep going.
Picture of your mind. I was not thinking about Luke Combs. Picture of your mind of the App Stater, bird watcher, biologist, hippie type person.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, and I know that's not everybody, but that's sort of the stereotype. That's who DNR's been hiring to do a lot of the property management for the last 10 years. The generation prior to that was like the country farmer type guy that was a hunter or fisherman or usually both, that knew how to fix a tractor if it broke down in the middle of the woods.
Right.
The guy that knew how to run a traco if he didn't have a technician to run a traco, that knew how to set a dike or a trunk, that knew what ducks liked, sort of intrinsically because he'd been watching them his whole life. He didn't just graduate from App State with a degree in wildlife biology last year, and so they have begun to require a biology degree. And when that happened about 10 years ago, we started getting these, App State type bird watching type people instead of the country farmer. And it started a downward spiral. Now, I'll tell you, most of DNR does a really good job. I'm a huge fan of the wildlife law enforcement officers. They do, they're way understaffed, way underfunded, and do what they can do. The wildlife biologists, sometimes we have some disagreements on how some of that should go. I like a guy that manages a piece of property that that would use that piece of property.
I was going to say he should manage it just like he or his own family are going to be hunting there.
Right.
I mean,
as
that
if
would
it
be
was-
my mindset.
Right. As if it was his and he or she was hunting it and using it for that intended purpose. If I'm managing a piece of property for hunters, but I'm not a hunter, I'm a bird watcher, there's an intrinsic conflict there.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, like I literally have incentive to not have ducks there if I know that there are duck hunters coming to shoot the birds that I love to watch. Right? So, I mean, there is an intrinsic conflict there that I think we have to work out at the state level, and that's now my problem and not
And some people are waiting 2, 3, and
you've been barking about that for a long time.
Oh, for a long time.
some
man.
people are waiting 2, 3, and 4 years to get the opportunity, and then say a father and a son. I'm definitely going to put me and Russ in the list. Well, I'll get on and start doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
And so the opportunity that we get to go out there, and the guy throws us in a boat that's got a hole in it. I paddle out to wherever he says to go sit, and I sit down and I look around. And I'm like, dude, there's nothing but weeds out here. Like there's nothing.
Yeah.
And
Well, I'll tell you a quick story, and I'm not going to. I don't want the guy to get fired, so I'm not going to name where it was or who it was. Okay, I'm just going to give you a story. So I passed by this one particular island back in June every week. Okay, on my way to a particular beach.
okay,
Okay.
Yep.
I passed by this island at least once a week, taking the kids, taking Renee, going fishing, going to pick up seashells, taking people from out of town to go pick up. I passed by this island, I don't know, 6, 7 times through the course of the summer, every week. And I notice after 3, 4, 5 weeks, I notice there's a long arm traco.
I know what you're talking about. Keep going.
Yeah, there's a long arm traco and a ranger sitting on the dike. Okay, and it hasn't moved all summer long. And I know there's a break in the dike, so they don't have water control on that particular field. I know there's a break in that dike. So after watching it for a while, I called the director of DNR and I said, there's a break in the dike. There's a long arm traco right there that could fix it, and a ranger. And it sat there all summer long. And we're about to get into duck season. It sat there all summer long and never moved. I do not understand what's going on here. He said, I'll take care of it. So I came by the next week, and to my surprise, it was gone. And I was thinking, great, well, they've moved it. I'm like, but the hole's still in the dike. I'm like, what happened here? So I rode back to the main, I try not to give it away again.
Yep.
I rode back to the main place where they had barged that traco, barged that ranger, taken it upriver 4 miles, and put it off on the mainland.
So you couldn't see it.
So I couldn't see it anymore.
Oh my God!
And they didn't fix the hole. They didn't
boy.
fix. They
Had all the
moved it
resources.
just so I wouldn't see it anymore, so I wouldn't complain about it. But they didn't fix the hole.
And think about the effort that it took to
Yeah.
get those things and move them out of there, and then not
Instead of just going down there and fixing it.
fix the hole.
I mean, I know I can almost hear that conversation. Senator Goldfinch called. He's complained about that traco. Get that thing out of there. Well, sir, that hole hadn't been fixed. Doesn't matter. Just get the dang thing out of there. And that's the way it sat.
Just move it.
And then it sat on that hill for another 2 months. I watched it sit on that hill for another 2 months. And you know what? They didn't have water control in there at first of duck season. So, I mean, there are problems. There are definite problems. There are bright spots over there as well. Aki with DNR has done a good job with what he has had. There are some bright spots, but there are also some dark spots that need to be addressed for sure.
Well, I'll tell you, I had the pleasure in the tournament this week. I didn't even mention that I had DNR on the boat. So we didn't put out a thing for nominations. We kind of nominated this certain individual,
Right.
Tommy Buchanan of Horry County DNR.
yeah.
Tommy's
Now, I better be careful. Now he's with the state DNR. He's in training. He is no longer with Horry County DNR directly.
I didn't know. So he's doing at the academy now.
Well, yeah, working. I don't know how that. I don't know exactly how it goes, so I don't want to say the wrong thing. But I do know that it's been announced, so I can say it. But yeah, so he's with training. But we had a blast, man. We had so much. He is so much fun. But he is all about education, and we have him on our radio show a lot.
Yep.
But he is all about education before tickets. You know what I mean? Yes, he'll write you a ticket, but he is about educating you.
He's good at it. He helps do the fishing rodeos.
Yeah.
Exactly. And you were there, and I tried to get your attention. We were doing the radio show, and I tried to get your attention, and you just kept right on walking, but you were busy. But we tried to get you over and get you on
Next
the air.
year we'll do it for
That
sure.
that was in the heat of the campaign.
That was in the heat
And
of
I
the
had a
campaign.
big arm, so I had a big arm of swag. We were giving out fishing poles
Yep.
to the kids and stuff, and
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun.
Yep, Tommy's a good guy, but congratulations to Tommy on that new job. And then I hear Garrett got a new job.
He did. Yep, he did. He
Saltwater Marine.
he's in charge of the saltwater marine for Georgetown County now.
Okay, yeah.
He was going to be moving to Horry, and then somebody offered him a little more. No, I'm sorry. He was going to be moving from Horry
To Georgetown.
Georgetown.
Yep.
And then somebody offered him a little more money or a little better job, and now he's doing what he says he loves, which is the saltwater side.
Yep.
Which is great.
That's great. It's good to have people like that. I mean, I'm telling you, you're talking about the managers of these properties. It's also great to have these DNR officers that are coming in. Hunter Benton, make sure I say that right, just graduated law school.
He's the new guy.
Just graduated this school this week from the Justice Academy. A local boy from Merle's Inlet.
Did you say he graduated law school?
No, he graduated.
From the academy.
Yeah, from the academy.
Yeah.
And his uncle, Jeff Benton.
Yeah.
Everybody knows Jeff.
Jeff, yeah.
Jeff and his dad, Tommy, who is now a charter captain. But Hunter's going to be a great one. But he's an outdoorsman. He's a hunter. He's a fisherman. These are the people you want that job.
Yeah, they are because they understand it.
They understand it.
You know, they understand it. You're not just getting a guy that doesn't get the culture and the heritage. And there's a lot of things that you need to get in order to police it properly.
And they know they're going into it shorthanded. I mean, when you're talking each county, we have 6 officers or
7, I think.
7?
Yeah, for the whole county.
And Horry County is the largest county. Help me out. Is it still the largest county east of the Mississippi?
That's correct.
Yeah, and Georgetown County, which, I mean, they often swap them back and forth. Georgetown County's got to be the busiest county. Because
For outdoors?
Yeah, for
Oh,
outdoor
boy.
stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
Horry County's definitely busy, but, I mean, everybody from Horry County goes to Georgetown County. I mean, if you're going duck hunting, where do you go?
Go to Georgetown.
You're going to Georgetown. I mean, if you're fishing for big bull reds, where do you go? You go to Georgetown. If you're going shrimping, where do you go? You go to Georgetown or Bulls Bay. I mean, there's lots of outdoor activities that flow back and forth between Horry and Georgetown County, and it's a really busy place. And we ought to have double the officers we have. We fought to get 7 for Horry and Georgetown County, but we need double what we have.
I had a question I wanted to ask you, and then I've actually gone to Facebook, just so you know, and asked for anybody that has any questions. So we'll see what we come up with. But who was your biggest influence in politics? Got you into politics? I mean, I've had a great influence myself. I personally think I have a lot of respect for him. I've had a lot of respect for him for a long time, but now that we're business partners, I still have a lot of respect for him. If I ever did get into it, it'd be because of him. But who's been your biggest influence?
You know, I don't know that it was a person. I mean, there's lots of, you look at some of our presidents that we've had, Reagan, Teddy Roosevelt, those are, the easy ones that come to mind. But for me, I was a child of 9/11. I mean, I was in high school when 9/11 happened, and I'll never forget it. Just 9/12, the rally around the flagpole effect that the whole country had. People were getting along. We were coming out of this. We were mad but determined. And I'll tell you, one of the earliest political memories that I had was I was in high school, and our administrator had tickets to go see President Bush in 2002 campaign for Mark Sanford running for governor for the first time and Lindsey Graham running for the Senate for the first time. And so he couldn't go, and I overheard the conversation, and I just asked him for it. I said, can I get those? Can we go? So they excused 4 of us to go on a kind of an unsanctioned trip up to Columbia. And I just remember just going, wow, this is, all these people were there. You see snipers on the rooftop. People, I mean, it was 2002, but it was still very much, I mean, people were proud of the country. They were proud of where they were at. They were unified. And honestly, I always go back to that because I think that had such a big effect on me, just that time period, quite frankly, is that public policy matters. What you do matters. And you can really have a big impact on people by the decisions and the things that you do, and how important it was for good people, for good public servants to jump into the arena. It's easy. Yep. Look, we take errors all the time, warranted, unwarranted, whatever the case is. You put your family through a lot, but to have people who decide to jump in, but that kind of stuff matters. And I think that, and I think about that. I think about the Boy Scouts too. I was an Eagle Scout, and it's incumbent on all of us to leave our campsite better than you found it. That's kind of the old Boy Scout motto, and I look at that as a call to action for just people in who want to serve in their community, in their church, and whatever they're doing. Is we've got an obligation to the next generation to leave that a little bit better.
That's right.
I always wished we could sort of encapsulate that 9/12 feeling and
No doubt.
reinvigorate America. I'm sort of like you, Russell. I was at the Citadel when 9/11 happened. I watched it, in class at the Citadel. And if you can imagine how crazy the world was during 9/11, the Citadel was a crazy place to be during 9/11. I mean, I had lots of friends that were running down to the recruiting hall and enlisted, threw away their commissions, that they would have taken 2-3 years later and enlisted,
Right.
and ended up in Iraq, weeks later, and Afghanistan, after that. And I almost did, honestly. I almost did at the time. I was Navy, going in the Navy at that time, but I almost went and enlisted too. And I can remember the conversation with my dad clear as day. I called him in the middle of all of it, and it was still mass chaos that day. And he said to me, "Don't do anything without talking to me and your mom." Because he could hear it.
He knew, yeah.
He could hear it in my voice. Like, what was I going to do? What was I thinking about? And anyway, really emotional time for America, and I wish you could capture that again.
Yeah.
And and put it back, because I feel like we're in such a bad place right now politically. Partisanship in America it's got to be at least in my lifetime, and probably our parents' lifetime, it's got to be the worst it's been.
Yep.
Maybe not in the history. Obviously, we've had some bad history. I mean, you go back to the Civil War, and certainly had a divide. But in a couple of generations, this has been the worst partisanship that I've ever seen. And you just, there's no trust. The Republicans don't trust the Democrats. The Democrats don't trust the Republicans. We had this conversation with John Napier, Congressman Napier, which you know, Russell.
Yep.
Great guy. Has got a great sense of intellectual, institutional knowledge of the political realm, right? And he said in his lifetime, worst he's ever seen. And there's only a couple of ways to deal with this. You call it the truth. You speak the truth. And you start giving respect to the other side, even sometimes when they don't deserve it. Honestly, that's the hardest for me, is looking at somebody I think is telling me a lie, or somebody I think that doesn't have my best interest at heart, and trying to show them love and compassion, and try to show them that there are ways to move forward rather than ways to divide. And that's going to be a big challenge in a Congress that we have right now for you. And I wish,
there's no doubt.
I wish you the best. I'm glad it's not me. Truthfully, I'm glad it's you. But you're going to do a great job.
So January you'll go up for that, and then you'll stay through.
Yes, they haven't set the schedule yet, so it's set by the speaker or the leader. And so it could be 1 week we're there, the next week we're back in district, 2 weeks we're back up there, 1 week. I mean, it really just depends. You always get August off. I think August recess. Remember the term. But it's I was just in orientation last week, and it truly is. It helps, Stephen, that I went through the legislative process at the state.
Oh, no,
right.
no.
I mean, some of the things, the terms, the legalisms that come out in parliamentary procedure, you kind of instinctively get because you've lived it. So for people who have served in the General Assembly of whatever state they live in, they have a natural. It's a little bit easier of a transition. There are some people who've never served in any elected office at all. They were in business, they were in the military, whatever the case is, and for them, it's quite a transition. But it still is. I mean, even for somebody who knows a little bit about it, it still is like drinking water out of a fire hose.
Yeah, I imagine it is. I mean, you're now one of the most powerful people in America, and that comes with responsibility. Huge responsibility, and it can be used wisely or it could be used poorly. And I am proud to know you and to know that you're going to use it wisely.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're in good hands. I think we're in good hands for sure, and wish you the best of luck. You'll be in our prayers because there's no doubt you'll need some prayers for that position.
All of them, and we'll take all of them anytime.
Yeah.
But it's but I am looking forward to, like I said before, just working with people. I think there are so many things. The sexy stuff is the votes, right?
Yeah.
How you voted on this, how you voted on that. But really, I think your biggest impact is being locally focused and working with people. Because I was in the General Assembly, having those relationships I think is important, and having an ongoing dialogue. Even when we, Stephen and I are on a text chain now, me, him, and a couple other delegation members, and there's always something that comes up that we just put it on each other's radar. I think that's important, and having a relationship with your local mayors and your county councilmen. I mean that's going to drive a lot of what you do. It's unsexy. It doesn't get headlines or anything like that. But you want to talk about having an immediate impact on your area. Work with your local folks.
Well, that's the question, right? Do you want to have an impact for yourself and your own reputation, or do you want to have an impact for your area? And if I know you're to be one of these selfless public servants. I know you are, and so you have chosen wisely. You've chosen to have an impact for the area. You can clearly, at least I can, and I know you can, people that have been in politics a little while can clearly pick out the folks that are trying to make an impact for them personally, right? They're looking for a big headline that means nothing.
That's right.
Right? They're looking for a big headline. They say things, inflammatory things, that really mean nothing at the end of the day, other than it's going to get me a ticker on Fox News, or it's going to get me a 30-second interview on Fox News.
Yeah.
You can't be like that. If you want to be a public servant, you can't be like that. You can be like that if you want to be a politician. I always draw the distinction between the two, right? You want to be a politician or a public servant. You want to be a public servant, and I'm happy to know you, and I'm happy you're there serving us.
Thank you.
And it's nice to finally get to meet you.
Likewise.
And so when Stephen's gone, if I need some help with some political sides of the show while he's gone, I may reach out to you and have
I'll pinch hit.
Have you come sit with me.
Yeah, that'd be a good one. He could call in from D.C. and you could do call-ins.
Yep.
There you go, Russell Fry, the new co-host, Trilogy Outdoors.
We'll put him to work. Well, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. I know you got to go to work. So do I. You got to go to work too?
Thankfully not. Well, this is the week of Thanksgiving, by the way. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Everybody.
So I guess what we're going to do is next week we'll play trivia.
Yep.
We had said it would be after Thanksgiving. We'll play trivia. Challenging you to come up with the questions.
Okay.
Or do you want me to come up with the questions?
Well, I had one today, okay? One today. Spoiler for trivia, Thanksgiving trivia. What is the Pittman-Robertson Act?
That's a good one. Hold on to that.
There you go.
Hold on to that one. Yeah,
Hold
we'll
on
put
to
that in there. But we're going to give away some Trilogy swag to all you that can beat Stephen in trivia. Good luck to anybody that can beat Stephen in trivia. I'm sorry. If you haven't noticed, when I'm on the radio show, I'm normally the one talking. When it comes to the podcast, I sit back, shut up, and listen. But anyway, we'll get that one up next week and have a great time. But for Thanksgiving, get out, enjoy your family, enjoy a great meal. And Congressman Fry, we wish you and your family a great Thanksgiving.
You too.
And folks, don't forget, go grab Trilogy Outdoors magazine. It's in the stands now. We'll have the new magazine coming out next week. And don't forget, every Saturday morning on Gator 107.9 Southern Anglers Radio Show. So we're going to get out of here for the week. Y'all have a great Thanksgiving. Go Tigers. Oh, wait a minute. I had one thing.
Yeah.
All right, so what's your guess on the game? The Palmetto Bowl Saturday.
Well,
I don't care who you pull for. Just give me your guess.
I think USC is on a roll now after their Tennessee, and I'm going to go with USC. I got to, right? I mean,
okay, give me a score. Got to give me a score.
Oh, I got to give you a score?
Come on, you got to give me a score. Got to give me a score.
21-14.
All right.
I likewise look. I'm a Gamecock. I could see it going.
I know that.
You always throw out the stat book when the two teams play.
Exactly.
High energy. I think the momentum is incredible right now for Carolina. If you asked me a week ago, I would have said it should go the other way, but I think 31-27.
All right.
Carolina.
Yep.
31-27 Carolina.
Yep.
Okay. I do love the hype you Gamecock fans are feeling. Okay. I don't blame you. I would too. Yeah. But you were playing the 100th ranked defense in the country. This week you'll be playing the 13th ranked. So With that being said, I do think that Rattler is obviously really feeling it. I don't see him making a significant change. I do see that we do have a hole in the defensive backfield right now. We're missing one of our best players. I'm going 35-28 Clemson. 35-28 Clemson. So I'm keeping it close. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game.
That's generous for you.
35-28 Clemson.
That's
and
generous.
hoping that it's a great game. I just hope it's a great game and everybody's safe because we both have bowl games to go to this year.
That's right.
Yay! And we have a conference championship. But anyway, best of luck to all the teams playing this week. I think Coastal will be back on the field this week.
How's Coastal doing this year, by the way?
For their final game. Coastal's great. They just moved into the top. As of last night, they moved to 23rd, I believe.
Correct.
23rd. And, unfortunately, our thoughts and prayers go out to the family of all the Virginia Cavalier football team and everybody touched by that. But, unfortunately, they did not get to play this week. That would have been a big game for them.
That was the Virginia game.
All right. That would have been the big game. If they could have played that and won it, that would have, I think, boosted them up higher in the top
for
20.
sure.
And that game got canceled because of
the shooting. Yep.
Okay.
And
so who do they play next?
Conference championship, right? I mean, actually, who is their? I don't. Do they have?
They've already played Liberty.
Oh.
So they
might be done.
They might be.
It's getting.
But they're in the championship game.
They are in the championship.
Yeah.
And now look, this is where we needed Steve Senior because this is his job. He looks up things when we have a question.
Mr. Producer.
Mr. Producer.
We're going to call him Mr. Producer.
All right. Here we go. Coastal Carolina football. Here we go. Oh, no, dude. They played Southern Miss.
Okay.
Wait, no. Wait a minute. They just played Southern Miss. Hang on. All right. Here we go. All right. Saturday, November 26th. Coastal and James Madison.
James Madison.
Yep. So they play James Madison. Good luck to Coastal. Good luck. They've done great. All right. Well, listen, we're going to get out of here, folks. Remember, every week here at Trilogy Outdoors Podcast on all the platforms, click like, subscribe, share it with your friends. We're going to be talking fins, fur, and feather.
And politics.
All right. We'll see y'all next week.
Trilogy Outdoors Podcast is a product of Trilogy Outdoors Media. All views and opinions of our hosts and guests are not necessarily those of our sponsors. Trilogy Outdoors is produced and edited by Trilogy Outdoors Media. Be sure to follow us on all the podcast platforms as well as our social media pages on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And also don't forget our other brands, Southern English Radio Show and Walk 'Em All Outdoor Magazine. To find more information, visit TrilogyOutdoorsMedia.com. And remember, if it's anything dealing with fins, fur, and feathers, you're going to find it right here on Trilogy Outdoors.